If you fly DCS World and you have a Stream Deck, this video is going to show you how to turn it into a fully functional cockpit extension. We're going to go from zero to a working setup using the F-18C Hornet as our example, but everything I show you applies to any aircraft in DCS World. We'll cover buttons, live cockpit displays, state monitoring, and encoder knobs on the Stream Deck Plus, but this will work obviously for any of the Stream Deck models. As long as it has an encoder, it'll work. If it has a display, it'll work. You get the idea. And before we start building anything, I'm also going to show you where to find the command data for any aircraft, even the ones that aren't currently in the Hangar Control library yet. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. Stick around. One app designed to do it all. Hangar Control brings everything together: control bindings, hardware configuration, mod and profile management, application launching, add-ons, config files, and more, all managed from a single application. Mods Hangar goes beyond just mods and add-ons. It manages profiles, config files, text files, backups, snapshots, and helps keep your community folders clean and organized. Application Hangar launches your entire sim stack with a single click. Your Stream Decks are fully controlled through the Hangar Control plugin, while all of your other Stream Deck plugins remain active and available. Built by a simmer for simmers, Hangar Control adds new features and hardware support every week based on community feedback. It's a one-time purchase with lifetime updates, no subscriptions. You can try it for free for 5 days with no restrictions at overkillsimulations.com. Just create an account, head to your account page, download the latest version, and get started. And if you're looking for in-depth Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft tutorials, check out my Patreon site. Links to Hangar Control and Patreon are down in the description below. Okay, so as I said, this video is going to be a bit longer, so I'm going to try to have chapters between everything. But it's not just a matter of showing you what Hangar Control can do with the Stream Deck, but I also want to show you guys how to find some of this information yourself. Because the library for the arguments and the variables is something that I have to build by hand. Same thing with the commands that we already have from many of the aircraft. DCS does not have something like SimConnect that we see with Microsoft Flight Simulator. That library has to be built manually. Okay, there's no kind of API that's just exposing it based on the aircraft you're flying. Now, the reason why that's important to bring to your attention is because just because I don't have an aircraft currently supported in the library for the arguments and the variables doesn't mean you can't access those commands. You just have to do it manually, the same way that I'm going to be building it. So I'm going to walk you guys through how to do that. If there is a command or is a display variable or there is an argument that is not in the command list, you guys can manually enter that into your button configuration in both the Stream Deck, the control bindings within Hangar Control, or the touch panel within Hangar Control, and they will work. Okay, they don't have to be in the library for Hangar Control to recognize them and know how to use them. So let's get started on what you need to get this rolling. Okay, so quick setup check before we get started. First, you obviously need three things in place. You obviously need to have Hangar Control installed and ready to roll. If you do not have Hangar Control and you're interested in trying it out, overkillsimulations.com. Create your account first. Even if you just plan on buying it, you need to create an account first, then hit the red account button. Then you can either download the Hangar Control software and do a 5-day free trial, or you are able to purchase outright, but you want to create that account first. Then we're going to go over to the settings view. You want to come down and you want to find the DCS World plugin and make sure that it is installed. Make sure you verify the directory if you use the auto detect option, or you can browse to it, but you want your saved games DCS root folder. And then the Stream Deck plugin, simply hit install Stream Deck plugin if you have not already. Okay, so that's really all we need for that particular portion. You need to have a DCS World profile. And if we go to edit, you can see the simulator type is DCS World. When you create one by hitting the add button, you will get this window. Make sure you set simulator type to DCS World. And then, of course, whichever aircraft you are choosing to use. And finally, the last piece is we want to start service. And that will be basically it for right now. Don't worry, this will change to F-18 Hornet once we're back in the sim and playing around with things. So I'm going to move Hangar Control out of the way because that's really the last time we're going to need it for a while here. So coming down to the next piece. Okay, let's talk about what we're going to show through all of this. Currently, we have a arguments and variables and controls library for the F-18C Hornet. Now, for control bindings, you're binding your buttons, your switches, your levers, your throttles, your whatever. We have a huge, extensive library of multiple aircraft, almost every aircraft that's available in DCS. However, when it comes to an in-house, meaning in-house supported by Hangar Control, arguments and variable library, the only one that currently exists right now is the Hornet. And then there's also a general export list, which we'll talk about later on here in a minute. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is because you do have the ability, even if the F-18 is the only one that I currently have a library built for, because these have to be built by hand. Where Microsoft Flight Simulator, there's an API. We are able to very easily access all of the commands amongst all of the aircraft, whether it be LVARs or whatever. With DCS World, these libraries have to be built by hand. There is no API to expose all of that information. So I'm going to show you guys where a lot of this data comes from, how to use it. We're going to use the data manually from the scripts and the different LUAs on how to create our buttons and stuff. And then I will, obviously, you guys will be able to see the library that's already built. With each passing week and day, I will be adding new aircraft to the default library, where eventually, hopefully, you won't have to do this. But the cool part about showing this particular piece is, let's say I miss one. I am human. If I miss a command or miss a variable or a new one gets added, you'll know how to go in and get it. As long as you have the command correct, it does not have to be in the DCS World library from Hangar Control. Hangar Control just has to know that the command is right. So as long as you come in here and you find the right data and you put it into, whether it be the Stream Deck, the touch panel, or your control bindings, this will work. And again, this whole process is supported in both the Stream Deck as well as in the Hangar Control touch panel too, if you want to create your own buttons using your tablets, monitors, cell phones, whatever. Okay, so let's get after it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to navigate to a specific folder. You want your DCS World main folder. If you're doing a default installation, that's usually going to be Program Files, Ecodynamics, DCS World. If it's in a custom directory, you probably already know that, and I don't have to tell you where it is. But you still want DCS World. Once you enter that folder, Mods, Aircraft, in our case, the F-18C, then you're going to go to Cockpit, and you're going to go to Scripts. Now, as far as I am aware, I cannot think of how it would be possible to do otherwise, but every single aircraft in DCS World that is player flyable should have this configuration. Okay? Now, once we're in here, let's talk about what we've got. Okay? So, the first one that we're going to take a look at is the clickable data LUA. These are going to be our commands. Okay, this defines every control you interact with in the cockpit. Every switch, button, knob, and lever. Each entry follows the same pattern. So once you can read one, you can read all of them. Let's open this one up and we'll look at some examples. I highly recommend you open these with Notepad++, as Notepad++ will make it very easy to read on the eyes. You can use standard Notepad, but it will not look as pretty and could be hard to follow. Notepad++ is free. You can simply go to Google or whatever web browser search engine you're using, type in Notepad++ download, and you will find it. It is a heavily used application by both technical support, programmers, and you name it, and there is no risk in using it. Like, I highly recommend this. So here we go. Here is our clickable data LUA. Now, let's scroll down. You can already see this is what we're talking about right here. Okay, so we're going to be reading these lines all the way across. Let's find the landing gear. Now, what's really cool is that most of the aircrafts, now this particular piece is based on the developer, but for the most part, they should all have some sort of tree structure. These green hash lines indicate a comment out. Okay, so they're not part of the code. They're a reference system for you. Okay, so control system, let's go down to, usually there is a landing gear or a wheel system or something to that effect. There it is, the gear system. So this is what we're going to start with right here. So let's start with this first line right here. We're just going to grab this guy and bring it down to here. This is where this one ends. Okay, now I know that's showing up at a very high blue on the screen, so I'm going to deselect it so you can just see it like that. Okay, so let's break this down piece by piece. You have the 0.226. This is the element ID. It corresponds to the physical spot in the 3D cockpit. The function name is this guy right here, landing gear control handle. Okay, so that's the function name. All right, then the next text in the quotes here, okay, all the way from left to right. Okay, this is going to be what we call the human readable name. And then you have the device's gear interface is the device this control belongs to. So you have the reference within inside of the cockpit, the location, if you will. You have what the function actually does. You have what are the users going to see this titled as when they look through their controls. And then you have what does it actually interface with. Okay. Now, the device's gear interface, okay, and gear commands gear handle, which is right down here, are variables, not actual numbers. The actual device ID number and command code number live in two companion files within the same folder. Okay, so if we go back to the File Explorer, you're going to be looking at devices.lua, and we're going to be looking at command_defs lua. Okay, if you were entering this command manually outside of the library, you'd open those files to find the gear interface, which is device 5, and gear handle, which is command code 3001. Okay, now let's look at a couple more within here. Now, the good news is when it comes to the commands, we have all of those built in. You should not have to go hunting for commands. So that's why I'm not showing all those pieces. But I wanted you guys to sort of at least get a high-level view of the connection. Okay, so let's come that out of here, get that out of here. And now let's look for our electrical system. There it is right here. Okay, so let's look at our battery. We're just going to grab that and do one of these. Okay, so for the batteries, we can see that the function default 3 position tum tells you, there we go, this guy right here, tells you that this is a 3 position switch. The name says on, off, and override. Okay. We'll use this later when we go to set up an actual step button. Let's look at one more, the master caution reset. Now, another cool feature is you can do a Control F for Foxtrot, and let's look for caution. Okay. And so we're close. This is the warn caution dimmer control. Let's keep looking. And there it is right there. You see it? Master caution reset. Okay, so I also want you to be using, most of the time, what you see in the cockpit is what you can find here. So if you are looking for something specific, usually, if you even just take a small portion of the verbiage, you can find it. But we could have done and literally found straight to it. Okay, and there is no find next, which lets you know that you don't have to worry about juggling any kind of secondary command that has a similar name. So coming down here to the master caution reset. So first, looking at the default button. The default button means this is a momentary push button. You press it and let go. We'll see this once we set it up on the Stream Deck here in just a minute. The function tells you what kind of interaction the control expects. Default button again, meaning momentary, press and release. Default 2 position tum or tumbler means a 2 position toggle switch. Default 3 position tum or tumbler means a 3 position selector, as we discussed previously. And then finally, default axis limited means a continuous knob or axis. That pattern holds true across every DCS aircraft module. The function names may vary slightly between modules. Again, that's dependent on the developer. But the overall design and requirements of that design are going to be uniform across the board because DCS is a Lua-based profile. So it means that all of these commands and all of these tables have to be written in a very specific way for DCS to know what to do with them. So now let's look at another one. We're going to come back in here and we're going to look at our next piece of paper, if you will. We're going to look at the main panel init Lua. Opening this guy up here, this is the second file that we are going to be referencing. This defines cockpit gauges, instrument needles, drum counters, and other animated elements. Each one has an argument number. This is the number that you type directly into Hangar Control when you want to monitor or display a cockpit instrument value on your Stream Deck or touch panel. So let's take a look at the standby airspeed indicator. So again, to make things a little bit easier, we're going to do our control find and let's just look for airspeed first. And look what we come straight up to, the airspeed indicator. So let's take a look at what we've got here. This is what we're looking at for your reference. I'm going to unhighlight it. So the line that we care about is the argument number 217. This one right here. That's what we're going to be interested in when it comes time to display this information onto our Stream Deck or touch panel. That's literally it. We don't need to worry about anything else. This is what we're interested in right here. This is what tells us what we're looking for. To look at another one here, let's say you wanted to do your throttle positions. Let's just look for throttle first. So these are not what we're going to be interested in for this particular aircraft, although there is some benefit here. You can see there's create simple gauge, but that's not what we're looking for just yet. What we're actually going to be wanting is if we hit find next, are these guys right here. Notice that these ones have left throttle and a right throttle. You can see what their arguments are, 104 and 105. So when it comes time to start creating our Stream Deck, remember these numbers and remember that we are stating 104 for the left engine, or excuse me, the left throttle position, and 105 for the right. Okay, now the next one that we want to look for, this one can be a little bit harder to find depending on where you're at. So I recommend once you get into scripts, just searching up here for lamps. And this is exactly what you want. Now, you can either right click and open file location, and that will tell you where it is. Or you could have just double clicked it and opened the document. But this is the other one, and this is the one that's probably going to be the most sought after in many situations. When we edit this one, this is all of your warning lights. Caution light indicator panel, advisory and threat indicators, all of the stuff that you guys would normally want to look. Your cockpit lights, AA mode, air to ground mode, your discharge lights, right? All kinds of really cool stuff that's going to help you really customize your build. Okay. So in this particular situation, you navigate into the main panel subfolder. This defines every warning light, caution indicator, advisory panel, and annunciator in the cockpit. These are the ones you'll use most for state monitoring because they are simple on-off values. Perfect for our Stream Deck buttons or touch panel buttons. Okay, things that we will find here is things like your master caution, your landing gear indicators, your nose gear, which is 166, left gear, which is 165, and the right gear, which is 167. Okay, and an easy way, again, to find those, can't stress that enough, we can just do gear. Oops, not GERT. Gear. Okay, there's your gear handle. Okay, let's do another tap. There we go. Where are you? There you go. Nose gear, left gear, right gear. Here's your flap status, full flaps, right? However you want to do it. can have a lot of fun, but this is going to be the most common one that you're probably going to get after. So in recap of these three files before we start building now, okay, you had the clickable data Lua, which tells you what commands exist and what type of control each one is: a button, a toggle, or a 3-position switch, or an axis. Okay, then you have your main panel, which gives you your argument numbers for gauges and instruments. You want to show your airspeed needles, you want to show your airspeed, altitude, throttle positions, altimeter drums. Okay, and then the lamps Lua, which gives you your argument numbers for every cockpit light: master caution, gear indicators, fire warnings, caution panels. The argument numbers from main panel init Lua and lamps Lua are what you type directly into the cockpit argument field on the Stream Deck or touch panel property inspectors. Okay, which again you guys will see in just a minute. So with that information, I know that's very high level, but hopefully gives you somewhere to start. Let's go ahead and start building our Stream Deck. Okay, so now let's go ahead and combine what we've learned already. So let's bring all this together. So if we open up our notepad again, I've opened up a few of the other ones that we're going to need. Now, the clickable data and anything in the devices Lua, okay, or the command defs, for the most part is already in here. So we're going to take our DCS command option here, and we're going to go to the aircraft library, and then we're going to select our aircraft and select the F-18C. So the command, anything that has to do with pushing a button, throwing a lever, flipping a switch, turning a knob, it should already be in here. Okay, so what we're going to be looking for here is the master caution. And actually, there it is right there. Master caution, press to reset. That's what we want. Select, boom. So now we have our button. And remember, when we read this, okay, if we come back in here and we look for master caution, we know the default button means it is a momentary press. So that part is set. We're good there. Okay. So now to trigger it, for example, let's go ahead and come into our cockpit, and I'm going to trigger a master caution, and I'm going to press the button on my Stream Deck, and you guys saw it depress. Boom. So that part's good. But now we obviously want the button to illuminate based on the lamp in the cockpit. So remember that we want to come and look at the devices. So the devices, the cockpit lights. So we go to our devices, Lua, devices, devices. And if we go to our scripts again, there's our devices, Lua. Okay, so this first one is telling you where to find it. So we're going to come in here, and we know it is device number 9. Now, how you find this is you can see everything below here, okay, is going to be considered a device in the command defs, okay? So these are all your different arguments, and this tells you where they list or where they live in the command definitions, okay? So we know that where we're looking is cockpit lights, the 9th device, and it should be titled cockpit lighting. Now, this is not always one-to-one, so you can't always just come into the command defs and find that. But we're going to go to command defs, and you can see we are under cockpit lights, which is good. But let me show you how to look at this. The big key that you want up here, if you are doing a manual command, a command that is not currently supported in the software, the command starts at 3000 for each section, okay? This is your parent section. Notice that there is an indent here. This is a child of this. This is the parent. The parent is where those numbers come from. So remember, we're looking for the 9th device. So there's 1. There's 2. 3. Let me move that over a little bit. I just realized that was off. There we go. So all the way on the far left, it's going to be the furthest next to your numbers. There's 4. There's 5. 6, 7, 8, and 9. And the command we're looking for is master caution. Now remember, each command, each section starts with 3,000. That's what we saw at the top of the list. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we know that the master caution command to actually trigger the command is 3008. Now, to bring a little bit more of this, the 14 argument that we saw earlier. Where did it go? Somehow I jumped off my master caution. Oh, I know why. There it is. Right here. This is the physical animation of the button. Okay, when we pushed the button, watch the button. Like, let me trigger it again so you guys can see it. If I push the button, you can see it pushing in. That is argument 14. The actual motion of the button, the animation is 14. That's not the lamp. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to find the lamp. So when we go to command defs, okay, that just takes care of the command portion. The lamps is that one I was telling you guys earlier, is here. And so here you find, again, lights, master caution, like we saw before. And if we come back here, we know it's lights, and we know it's master caution. So when we go to our lamps file, there's our argument, number 13. So when we come back to our Stream Deck, we can now use argument 13 to configure a state change. So let's have some fun with this. So state monitoring first is our first step. Coming down. And we want cockpit argument 13. You can leave the threshold because pretty much everything is going to be between 0 and 1. And we're going to scroll down to our icons. And this is where we can have some fun. And I'm just going to look for a generic. You can use anything that you want, but we're going to look for the generic since this is DCS. And we're going to look for push yellow, just because obviously it lights up yellow. And I'm going to take the icon size, and I'm going to make sure it stretches the full width and height of the button. I'm going to scroll down a bit. And we're going to do the on text. So when 13 lights up, we want it to say master. I'm going to do shift and enter. Oops. Caution. And I'm going to bump up the font size quite a bit. The color, we want it to be black because we want it to lay over that yellow icon. And now, when we trigger our master caution, you can see there's that. I push the button, clears it. Now, let's adjust that text. We want the text in the center. Trigger it again. And there we go. Okay? So let's do another one. Let's use the landing gear handle as our next one. So we're going to come back in here, go to our next button, do another DCS command. Same as before, find the Hornet. And because it's the actual action, it should already be in here. And we're just going to search for gear. And we want the gear lever. Now, the gear lever, let's do this. Let's go back to our information here. Let's go to our clickable data. And I'm going to search for gear. And we can see 0.226. Remember, that's just its location. Landing gear control handle. There it is. And we can see up and down. Okay, so we know it's a toggle state, right? And you know that just by looking at it. That's the other thing. It's pretty easy. I mean, you know it's got a 2-position handle, right? So we know that we need to change this. This isn't going to be a momentary. This is going to be a toggle. We want to change its position between 1 and 0. Okay, so now let's scroll on down. Let's find our cockpit argument. So the cockpit argument is 226. This is, again, the position of the actual gear handle. That's what we're monitoring. So 226 is our argument. And we're going to scroll on down to our on-off text again. I'm not going to worry about an icon for this one. But what I do want, now, if I remember correctly, on should be Let me think. Do I have this right? Let me make sure I got this right. I think it is gear. Oh, yep. Okay, so it should be gear up. Let's change the, we're going to reverse these colors. We want that to red. Increase the font size. Give it a center axis or center point here, right? However we want to do that. Okay, and then let's change the off color to gear down. And let's change this to green. Okay, and so then now when we come back in here, let's bring our Stream Deck up. We push our button. And there it goes. Gear's coming down. And this is monitoring the gear handle position. And we can do, push it again, gear handle coming up. Okay, so pretty cool stuff. Real easy ways to do this. Okay, so the next thing here is let's create, let's add some variables, right? Let's maybe get our altitude, our speed, things like that. Now, for that, again, all of this stuff should already really be in here, but I'm still going to show you guys where I find it. Okay, so for that one, what we're going to do is go back to the DCS World main directory. So we're at the top of the tree, scripts, and we are looking for this export Lua. And if we open that up, we start scrolling down, like a lot. You can see here's a lot of the stuff. Pilot name, player, all kinds of true airspeed. These are all the commands that we are using to gather this information. Okay. Now, again, all of this stuff should already be in the software, so you shouldn't have to worry about playing with it. Just trying to show you where it's all coming from. Sharing that information, right? So now let's create a display. So again, on the button here, and you can do really any of these, doesn't matter. We're going to come up here. And again, select, we're actually not going to select an aircraft library. I'm going to show you why. So these are all generalized, right? Everything that was in that last export list that I showed you, okay, in this one here, is unanimous on just about every aircraft in the sim, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to scroll down, live display variables. We're going to hit slot 1. We're going to activate it. The key there is your hash marks letting you know that it's on. Okay, and what we can do is hit browse, and it will ask you to select. So here, I've got most of this stuff for you guys. So let's say first we want our altitude. Okay, so let's see, this is attitude. We don't want that. Control surfaces, engine, your flight data. You can do AGL or MSL. Let's do both. Okay, and you can add, if you want, feet. Okay, that's our current altitude. We can change our Y offset, bring that up, right? Get it up there. We can increase our font size just like before. Okay, we can change our font color just like all the stuff we had before. And then let's go to slot 2 and maybe get our AGL on here. Okay, let's drop the AGL in there. And again, feet. And maybe set this one to like orange just to give it some delimitation. Again, increase that font size. Change that Y offset. Okay, so now we know that we're at 6300 MSL. I'm at 6193 AGL. Okay, and let's maybe add one more. And we're gonna add mean sea level, or let's do airspeed. Airspeed's always a good one. Indicated airspeed in knots. So again, knots. Change that Y offset, bring it down. And we're at 252 knots, right? So now I've got all of this cool stuff that I can display. And you can always, if you want a push button, you could always add your push buttons. If you were doing a specific autopilot control or something to that effect, you'd be able to add that here if you wanted. Okay, so really easy stuff. And a lot of this stuff is already there, you know. So let's do one more. I think, well, let's do another one. Let's do our engine performance to show you guys a couple other cool ones. Okay, so again, we don't need the aircraft library for this particular one. Actually, I might be wrong on that. But let's see. Let's go look. I can't remember now. Nope. Engine. There's your fuel flow, RPM. Left engine RPM percent. So we can do left engine percent. Okay, 76%. You guys obviously can guess where this would go if you were doing the right engine. Okay, but again, just showing you guys just some of the data that you can have. And if I adjust my throttle, okay, so and then you always know what your engine percentage is. All right, and you guys saw there's fuel flow, there's current low fuel, there's a low fuel warning. There's all kinds of stuff that we can set up to do this. Unfortunately, if I were to go through everything, it would just be insane. Okay, so the last piece we're going to go over here is the encoder. Okay, so anytime you click on any of the encoders, this menu will pop up. And it will also control the display. Now you can use the SimVar display, but honestly the encoder control does both. Again, this is another one of those duplications that I'm probably going to remove. This was part of the process of constructing the plugin where I started with the displays and worked my way down. So that's why that's there. But the encoder control will do it all. So I want to talk to you guys real quick about a couple things that I know are very common, especially if you're also doing things like Microsoft Flight Simulator. Is if you wanted to display, for example, the heading bug position. In Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane, you have variables where that data is readable by applications. In DCS World, it's not. There are ways to export it, but it requires far further construction, which will come at a later time. But I mean, it is a major implementation to pull some of these things that are displayed on the various screens. So we can do the aircraft's current heading, okay, and you can use that to sort of adjust where you want to be and then watch your bugs and things like that. But and the nice thing is you have your heading bug up on the heads-up display too. So I just want to give you guys a couple of tips. The other thing is with the encoders, like let's say if you're wanting to use the encoder to control the heading switch, because this is on a switch, yes, it will work, but the behavior will be odd. I am working on a way to smooth that out, add an option, but again, it requires some manipulation of the encoder and how an encoder essentially works. Okay, so I do recommend as we're setting up the encoders that you stick to things that are on the encoders. If it's an encoder here or a knob here, then you can bind it to here. If it's a switch or a button here, leave it as a switch or a button somewhere else, okay? You just keep it one for one is, I guess, the short version. You know, your lights down here, great for an encoder. You know, brightness displays, things like that. Even the brightness positions on your AMPCDs or things like down here, these are all fantastic for encoders and they will work great. Okay, so that's the only tip I want to give you guys as we get going into this. So let's just sort of walk through this. We're just going to take, just like we did before, we're going to take our encoder control, drag it on over, and boom, there we go. Now you can see it says encoder control up here. You can simply get rid of that by clicking into the title box and hitting space, and boom, gone, right? And then you can title it whatever you want. All right, we're going to scroll on down. Now for rotation action, you can see it says adjust SimVar. That is for Microsoft Flight Simulator. We're just going to click in there, and we just want DCS commands. There may be certain times you want to use the axis, but for 90% of what you're going to do, you just need this guy right here. Okay, so we're going to click in here. And the conditional branch, by the way, that I showed you guys before, that does not currently have it. Okay, so we're going to, oh, yes, I did do that. Oh, gosh darn it, I just spent the last hour doing that. Never mind. I'm sorry. Disregard. You can tell that I've been working on this for way too long. If you guys have questions about the conditional actions, check out my previous Stream Deck video where we go through that. The process will be the same. But we're going to come back up here. And we don't want conditional multi-branch for today. We're just going to show some DCS commands. So what I'm going to start with here is just as a simple demo. Okay, let's come up here a little bit and let's use the heads-up display. Okay, we're going to use this brightness knob on the HUD just to sort of show the functionality and how easy this is to set up. All right, so once again, select aircraft just like we always do. We're going to come down and find our Hornet. Oh, okay. I was making sure that was here. That was another bug I fixed, so it just dawned on me. I was like, why isn't that showing? But it is. All right, anyway, we're going to browse here, and let's look for brightness is actually the easiest way to find this. Okay, and we're going to look for, that's the AMPCD. There's the HUD symbology counterclockwise. I'm not sure why it displays like this. I will work on that, but that's minor at this point. And there we go. We want the increase. So we're going to select that, and then we're going to come down here and do the same thing. The Hornet. And we're going to go for brightness. And again, I will smooth a lot of this stuff out to where it will remember the previously selected thing, but for right now, I'm not too worried about. And let's see here. That's the increase. Now we want the decrease. Did I pass it? I think I did. HUD symbology. Nope, that's the day-night. HUD symbology. Did I pass it? Oh, I did. There it is. Decrease. So we just can hit that, click out of here, keep an eye on our HUD there and our brightness knob, and look at that. I'm just turning. And I can go click, 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 click. Or I can spin it nice and free. And if you ever like give it a good crank, you got to remember it's going to send however many pulses you rock it with. So if you ever like go to give it a really good turn and it keeps on going, just kick it back the other direction for a second, and usually it'll smooth that. But like, you don't have to spin the hell out of these for this kind of stuff unless you're wanting to on purpose and just letting it ride. So there's a quick encoder, showcase there. Now, if we want to do, your press action, same thing. You could come down here, find your DCS command, and maybe we want to switch between day and night. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys how to do the press action here. So we all know the encoder. You can either turn it right, turn it left, and then you can push in on it, and that's what the press action is. We're going to use that to toggle our day and night mode on the heads-up display. So luckily, I already have this programmed in because yours truly was a dork and wasn't recording earlier. So if we go DCS command, you'll see it's already here. But the part I want you to pay attention to is we're currently in momentary mode. So if I push that button, you can see it swaps, goes right back. We don't want a momentary here. This is a toggle switch, right? It's a 2-position switch. So if we push that, boom, there we go. Okay, so we got that all squared away. Let's do one more. And again, this will be already set. This is for the touch panel. So we're going to touch right here on our physical Stream Deck. This whole thing, for those who may not be aware, is a touch panel. So we're going to set that to our air-to-air master mode. Okay, so again, I was recording or wasn't recording. This one, we do want the momentary. We want it to press it and then release. So I'm going to give that screen a tap right now. And boom, look at that. And then if we tap it again, air-to-air mode disabled. Now, let's maybe put up some sort of value here that lets us know that the air-to-air mode is enabled. Okay. So state change, we're going to do DCS monitoring here, cockpit argument. We're going to come back to that. Let's configure everything else. And there's also double tap, by the way. But let's do an LCD display. Let's find one of those push buttons again, like we did above. Let's find a green one. Generic push is what we're looking for. And let's do green. There we go. So you can see it's kind of there. Again, let's stretch it out, make it look good. And let's add our label, and we can just do /A. If you want, we can do mode, right? However you want to do this. And let's definitely increase the hell out of that. Whoa! All right. That works. And the nice thing about these ones here is we do have a font weight. Let's give it a bold. Now, font color. I'm working on getting a color wheel into this. So easiest way to do this is if we take even this, if you want to take it as an example, just open up your Chrome or something, and then just do, let's see here, what would, I don't know, what's a cool color? Red? Let's do red. What would red be? Okay. Pure red represented by the hex. Here we go. FFF000, right? So you can just copy that out. That's one easy way to grab this stuff. And I am working on, like I said, building a color wheel. So boom, there you go. There's your font mode for that. And again, you don't have to change it. I'm just showing you how you could. But now let's go back and let's find our argument. Okay. Now I'm going to go on my hunt off camera, and then I'll come back and show you where I located it. Okay, so just like before, we found it in the lamps, and what I did was simply come in here, do a control find, and the way to think about it is a lamp, right? It's a light. It's that's what we're trying to trigger, is a light. So that's a good way to try to figure that out too. But we're gonna look for AA. We don't want that one. That's AAA. That's your RWR warning. We do want that one, but notice that there's no variable here, so keep going. Again, there's the AAA alert, and this is the one we want. Master arm control, number 47 is what we're watching. So when we come back over here, we're going to come down to our state toggle, and you can see I've already got it in here. DCS monitoring, cockpit argument ID 47, threshold, but like I said, we left it alone. We've got our icon and everything set up. Get that stuff out of the way. And when I touch the touch screen, here we go, giving it a tap. Boom. And it is absolutely lighting up on my Stream Deck as well. Give it, tap it again. There we go. Perfect, right? So just a couple of different ways that you guys can have a lot of fun with this. And again, there's double taps. There's still plenty of options that are built into this that will give you a lot of time to really play around with this. Have some fun with it. Get creative with your different gauges and your buttons. There's a lot of variables that you can work with, and there's going to be many more tutorials coming out for this. Today was just about sort of getting everybody started with it. I hope you guys find this useful. And as always, folks, stay safe and healthy. Don't forget to give Hangar Control a shot. Overkillsimulations.com, and I'll see you guys in the next one.